You stole my Rolex worth 180,000 reais. Tiago Prado Montero's shout echoed through the entire mansion, making the 200 guests stop what they were doing. What happened in the next 47 minutes destroyed an entire family and revealed truths no one could have imagined. Valentina Prado Montero's 15th birthday party was at its peak. The main ballroom of the mansion in Beverly Hills overflowed with elegance, with arrangements of imported white orchids, Czech crystal chandeliers, and a French buffet that cost 300,000 reais. Business magnates, renowned doctors, judges, and politicians circulated among tables dressed in Belgian linen, talking about multi-million-dollar deals while tasting caviar canapés. Dona Conceição Silva, 58, was carrying a tray of empty glasses when it all started. She wore the impeccable black uniform she had used for 12 years working for the Prado Montero family. Her hands, calloused from decades of hard work, trembled as Tiago, the family's eldest son with his 19 years of arrogance, pointed his finger at her. "That slum girl stole my watch!" Tiago yelled again, his red, furious face contrasting with the Italian tuxedo he wore. He crossed the ballroom, pushing past guests, knocking over a 3,000 Ray bottle of French champagne and a glass. "I left my Rolex Daytona on the sideboard 20 minutes ago, and now it's gone. She was the only one who passed by it." The silence that fell over the room was absolute. 200 pairs of eyes turned to Conceição, who still held the tray, now visibly shaking. Some guests were already pulling out their phones, ready to film the scandal unfolding. "Mr. Tiago, I didn't take anything," Conceição said, her voice thin, almost a whisper. "I was just collecting the empty glasses like I always do." "Liar!" Tiago took 2 more steps forward, coming within inches of her. His breath smelled of 1,000 Reais Scottish whiskey per shot. "You think you can steal from my family just because we do charity by giving jobs to people like you?" Bernardo Prado Montero, the family patriarch, tried to approach his son. At 52, he ran a construction empire valued at 500 million reais. "Tiago, let's handle this calmly. There's no need for this scandal." "Calm?" Tiago turned to his father, gesturing frantically. "She stole 180,000 reais from my wrist, and you want calm? I want them to search her now, in front of everyone." Helena Prado Montero, the matriarch, 48, covered her mouth with a handful of diamond rings. "Son, that's not necessary. Conceição has worked with us for years." "So what?" Tiago shouted even louder. "You have always been too soft with the staff. That's why they think they can steal from us." Valentina, the birthday girl, tried to pull her brother by the arm. Her 20,000 Ray dress, imported from Paris, rustled as she moved. "Tiago, stop! You're ruining my party!" "Your party?" He pushed his sister lightly. "My watch is worth more than 10 of these parties, and this thief will pay." Conceição set the tray on the nearest table, her hands shaking so badly the glasses clinked. "Please, Mr. Tiago, I have 3 children to support. My mother has Alzheimer's and depends on the medications I buy. I would never steal anything, especially from the people who employed me." "Such a moving story," Tiago said, with cruel sarcasm. "I bet you rehearsed that for when you got caught." "But it won't work on me." Other staff at the party began to approach, forming a protective semicircle around Conceição. Marina, the cook, 40, was the first to speak. "Mr. Tiago, Conceição is the most honest person I know. She even returns a 1 real coin she finds on the floor." "Of course, you all cover for each other," Tiago spat. "Maid Mafia, but today this ends, huh?" He pulled his phone from his pocket and began dialing. "I'm calling the police now. And when they arrive, I want them to search this woman even in her private areas if necessary." Gasps of shock rippled through the crowd of guests. Some kept filming, others whispered among themselves. An elderly lady, the wife of an appellate judge, shook her head in disapproval but said nothing. "Tiago, this is too much." Bernardo tried again, his voice growing firmer. "Let's settle this in private." "Private nothing!" Tiago screamed. "She humiliated me by stealing at my sister's party in front of the whole Los Angeles elite. Now she will be humiliated too." Conceição began to cry silently. Tears traced down her face, marked by time and hard work. "Mr. Bernardo, please. You have known me for 12 years. I raised Valentina since she was little. There's never been a missing cent in this house because of me." "You think that matters?" Tiago interrupted. "A thief is a thief. It doesn't matter how long they've been deceiving us." He glanced at his phone. It's 5:30 in the afternoon. The press arrives at 6 to cover the party. If by then you haven't returned my watch, in addition to the police, I'll sue you for 500,000 reais in damages. And I'll make sure every newspaper publishes your name and picture as a thief. "But Mr. Tiago, I didn't take the watch," Conceição pleaded, falling to her knees. "Please, believe me. If I lose this job, my family will starve. And if the cleaning company finds out, they'll fire all 15 employees who work here." "Your problem and theirs," Tiago said coldly. "You should have thought of that before covering for a thief. You have 30 minutes to find my watch, otherwise I call the police and I will ruin all your lives." The clock read 5:40 in the afternoon when an elderly man walked through the ballroom entrance, moving slowly among the agitated guests. His name was Osvaldo Ferreira, 72. Wearing a simple gray suit he had bought 15 years ago on clearance, his worn shoes contrasting brutally with the luxury around him. No one knew how he had passed security, but there he was, approaching the center of the commotion with steady steps despite his age. "Excuse me," his hoarse but firm voice cut through the side conversations that had formed. "May I speak for a moment?" Tiago spun around sharply, his face still red with anger, now directing all his fury at the intruder. "Who the hell are you, old man? This is a private event. Security." Two huge men in black began to step forward, but Osvaldo raised his hand calmly. "Before you throw me out, you might want to know I saw exactly who took the young man's watch. I have it all recorded on my phone." The silence that followed was so deep you could hear the hum of the central air conditioning. Bernardo signaled the guards to wait, his eyes studying the old man with curiosity. "You saw? What do you mean? Who are you?" Osvaldo adjusted the cheap-rimmed glasses on his face and pulled an old phone from his pocket, the kind that cost less than 500 reais. "My name is Osvaldo Pereira. I was outside waiting for the right moment to come in. And yes, I filmed everything that happened in the last 40 minutes, including the exact moment the watch disappeared." Tiago took 2 steps toward the old man, his clenched fist trembling with anger. "If you saw that maid steal, why didn't you say so right away? You want attention, is that it?" Osvaldo shook his head slowly, a small smile appearing on his thin lips. "I didn't say it was Mrs. Conceição who took the watch. I said I know who did, and I have proof." The atmosphere in the room grew even tenser, if that was possible. Conceição, still kneeling, looked at the old man with a mix of hope and confusion. Something about that time-worn face seemed oddly familiar, but she couldn't place what. Then speak up, old man, Tiago yelled, completely losing his composure. Who was it? One of the other employees? A waiter? Osvaldo fiddled with his phone with the calm of someone who had all the time in the world, completely ignoring the urgency in the young man's voice. Before I show the video, I think it's important that everyone knows who I really am. I worked 40 years as an investigator for the federal police. I retired 12 years ago. I solved more than 300 cases of corruption, money laundering, and white-collar crime. I have enough experience to recognize when someone is setting up a frame. Helena stepped forward, her designer dress whispering softly. A setup. Are you insinuating my son is lying? Osvaldo looked at her with those brown eyes that had seen decades of lies and truths. Mrs. Prado Montero, I'm not insinuating. I'm stating, with documented evidence, that your son not only knows exactly where the watch is, but orchestrated this entire scene to harm an innocent employee. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Tiago lunged at the old man, but was held back by two guests. You lying old man! How dare you come into my family's house and accuse me of something like this? I'll sue you for defamation. Bernardo raised his hand, asking for calm, his face now showing genuine concern. Mr. Osvaldo, these are very serious accusations. Do you really have proof of what you're saying? The old man nodded and turned the phone so everyone could see the screen. Not only do I have proof of what happened today, but I also have information about your family that I've been collecting for 6 months. Do you remember that scandal with the municipal contract that almost blew up but was buried? Or the 15 million that disappeared from the municipal hospital project and was never found? Bernardo's face lost all color. How did that old man know about this? The cases had been archived, all the evidence destroyed, all the witnesses bought. But let's stick to what's relevant now, Osvaldo continued, pressing play on the video. The small screen showed a surprisingly clear image of the ballroom, filmed from an angle that captured the sideboard where Tiago claimed he had left the watch. I managed to get in through the back an hour ago and position myself strategically. I always keep my phone ready to record. Old investigator habits never die. In the video, it was possible to clearly see Tiago approaching the sideboard at 5:15 in the afternoon. He looked around, making sure no one was watching, then took his own Rolex from his wrist and placed it inside a drawer of the piece of furniture, not on top as he had claimed. A wave of surprise swept the room. Valentina covered her mouth with her hands, her eyes wide with shock. "Tiago, what are you doing?" she whispered, though everyone could hear. Osvaldo moved to the next clip. But there's more. Here, 5 minutes later. The new recording showed Tiago in the bathroom typing frantically on his phone. The audio was low, but you could clearly hear when he said on the call, "Everything's set, bro. I'll blame the old maid. My dad will have to give me at least 200,000 so I don't make a fuss with the press. I said the watch is worth 180,000, but I bought a fake one for 50,000 in Miami." The silence that followed was sepulchral. 200 guests stared open-mouthed between Tiago, who was pale as paper, and the video that kept playing. Bernardo took a step toward his son, his voice coming out dangerously low. "It's fake. You set all this up to extort money from me?" Tiago tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. "There's one more interesting detail," Osvaldo said, moving to a third recording. Look at the messages he exchanged with his friends on WhatsApp. The screenshot showed a group chat called The Untouchables, where Tiago wrote, "Today I'm going to teach that disgusting maid a lesson. Always giving me side-eye, thinking she's part of the family. I'm going to have her arrested in front of everyone. It's going to be epic. The friends mentioned in the messages, who were among the guests, began discreetly edging toward the exits, but the security guards, following a subtle gesture from Bernardo, blocked the doors. Helena gripped her husband's arm, her fingers digging into the fabric of his tuxedo as if she needed that support to keep from collapsing. Valentina cried silently, her 300 Reyes mascara streaking down her cheeks, staining the dress she had dreamed of wearing since she was 12. Tiago, Bernardo finally managed to speak, his voice laden with a disappointment so deep it made several guests avert their eyes. How could you do this? I'm not just talking about the money or the lie. I'm talking about trying to destroy the life of a woman who helped raise you and your sister. Conceição changed your diapers, took you to the doctor when you were sick, stayed up all night when you had nightmares. And this is how you repay her? Tiago tried to pull himself together, that natural arrogance attempting to regain control. Dad, you don't understand. It was just a prank that got out of hand. I was going to tell the truth later, I swear. I just wanted to scare her a little, show who's in charge here. His attempt at justification sounded even more pathetic in the face of the evidence presented. Osvaldo shook his head, carefully slipping the phone back into his pocket. Young man, this is not a prank. This is a crime. Filing a false police report, defamation, attempted extortion. If Mrs. Conceição wants to, she can put you in prison for at least 3 years. It was at that moment Helena finally exploded. The always impeccable, always controlled matriarch completely lost her composure. 3 years in prison? My son could be arrested? She turned to Tiago with a fury no one had ever seen in her. You destroyed our family. You destroyed your sister's party. You destroyed our reputation. Why? For money. We gave you everything. A no-limit card, a luxury car, trips, everything. But it's never enough, Tiago shot back, his voice rising too. You always treated me like I was useless. It was always Valentina this, Valentina that. The perfect little princess. I only exist to be the heir to the business, the robot who will keep the company going. You didn't even ask if that's what I wanted. The unexpected confession plunged the ballroom into an even deeper silence. It was like watching a family fall apart in real time, each word a hammer blow destroying years of appearances. Conceição, still kneeling on the floor, finally found the strength to stand. Marina and other staff helped her, holding her trembling arms. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand and looked at Tiago with a mixture of pity and sorrow. Boy Tiago, she said, using the nickname from when he was a child, I always knew you carried anger inside you, but I never imagined you were capable of such cruelty. Remember when you were 7 and fell off your bike? I was the one who took care of your scrapes because your parents were traveling. You hugged me crying and said I was the best person in the world. Tiago looked away, unable to meet those eyes that had watched him grow up. That was a long time ago. People change. Osvaldo took a step forward, positioning himself beside Conceição. Yes, people change, but some things need to be said now. He turned to face Conceição directly, and something in his gaze made her heart race. Conceição, my daughter, you really don't recognize me? The world seemed to stop spinning. Conceição looked more closely at the old man's face, studying every line, every mark of time, until realization struck her like lightning. Dad? The word came out as a disbelieving whisper. Dad, is it really you? Her legs buckled and she almost fell again, but Osvaldo held her, embracing her for the first time in 30 years. "It's me, my daughter, it's me!" The ballroom erupted in shocked murmurs. The guests didn't know where to look, torn between the Prado Montero family drama and this unexpected reunion. Bernardo stood agape, processing the information. "You two are father and daughter? But how? Why?" Osvaldo continued holding Conceição, who was sobbing, into his shoulder before answering. "We became estranged 30 years ago. I was an investigator obsessed with work, lived more at the station than at home. When her mother died, Conceição was 28 and pregnant with her first child. We fought badly because I said she should have waited until she was in a better financial situation before having children. Cruel words from a man far too proud." Conceição stepped back a little to look into her father's face. "You said I was a disappointment, that I'd thrown away all the opportunities you'd given me." Osvaldo nodded, tears running down his lined face. "And I regret it every day since. I looked for you for years, but you had moved to another city, changed from your maiden name to your married name. I only discovered where you were 6 months ago through a former colleague who recognized you in a photo from the cleaning company." "6 months?" Conceição asked, confused. "You knew where I was 6 months ago and didn't come talk to me?" Osvaldo hung his head, ashamed. "I did come. Several times. I'd stand outside your house, your work, trying to build up the courage. But I was afraid you'd reject me. So I started investigating the family you worked for. I wanted to be sure you were being treated well. That's when I uncovered several irregularities in their businesses and the abusive behavior of the eldest son." Bernardo took a step forward, his voice tense. "You've been investigating my family?" Osvaldo met his gaze without fear. "Yes, and I found a lot of interesting things. The 5 million reais bribe to the public works secretary. The diversion of 15 million from the hospital construction, about 30 million in tax evasion over the last 5 years. I have all the evidence stored, waiting for the right moment to use it." Bernardo's face drained of all color. Several guests, especially those who held public office, began slipping out discreetly, wanting no association with the looming scandal. Helena gripped her husband's arm even tighter. "Bernardo, is this true?" He didn't answer, which was answer enough. Valentina stopped crying, looking at her father in horror. "Dad, you stole hospital money? Sick people needing treatment and you stole?" The 15th birthday party had turned into a courtroom. The guests who remained, about 50 of the original 200, watched, frozen, as a family came apart piece by piece. Bernardo looked around the ballroom, seeing familiar faces turn their backs, people who minutes earlier had fawned over his family now whispering among themselves, some already sending messages to distance themselves from the impending scandal. The empire that had taken 20 years to build was crumbling in a matter of minutes. Then something unexpected happened. Bernardo Prado Montero, the man who never bowed to anyone, who had built his fortune often stepping on others, fell to his knees in the middle of the ballroom. The sound of his knees hitting the imported granite floor echoed through the room. "Conceição," he said, his voice breaking in a way even his wife had never heard. "Forgive me. Forgive me for my son. Forgive me for my negligence. Forgive me for all these years I allowed you to be treated as less than human in my house." Helena let out a sob at the sight of her husband in that position. Valentina ran to help her father up, but he motioned for her to wait. "No, daughter. I need to do this. Conceição took care of you two as if you were her own children. She sacrificed weekends, holidays, Christmas, New Year's. Always here, always available, always treated as a maid when she should have been treated as family. He lifted his head to look Conceição in the eyes. You raised my children better than I did myself. And look at what my son became under my education of money and power. And look at what your children became under your education of love and dignity. Conceição stood frozen, still supported by her father, Osvaldo. In 12 years, working for the Prado Monteiros, she had never imagined seeing Bernardo in that position, much less asking forgiveness publicly. Mr. Bernardo, please stand up, she said softly. This isn't necessary. But Bernardo shook his head. It is necessary. And more than necessary, I'm going to do what's right. He finally stood, took his phone from his pocket, and called someone. Dr. Nascimento? It's Bernardo. I need you to prepare documents immediately. Yes, now. I don't care that it's 6 on a Saturday evening. He paused, looking directly at Tiago. I want you to prepare the complete disinheritance of my son, Tiago. He will not receive a single cent of my assets. Everything in his name is to be transferred immediately to the name of Conceição Silva. Tiago's scream was animalistic. Dad, you can't do that. I'm your son, your blood. Bernardo stared at him coldly. Blood means nothing when there is no character. Conceição has more right to this inheritance than you do. She built this family with love while you tried to destroy it with greed. Tiago tried to move toward his father, but the guards held him back. This is madness. You've all gone crazy over a maid. She is not a maid, Valentina said, positioning herself beside Conceição. She's the woman who taught me to tie my shoes, who took me to ballet, who stayed awake when I was afraid of the dark. She's more of a mother to me than many biological mothers are to their children. Helena, who had been silent processing everything, took a step forward. Bernardo, about the hospital money, we need to return it. Every cent. Bernardo nodded, turning to Osvaldo. Mr. Osvaldo, do you have all the evidence of our crimes? The retired investigator confirmed with a nod. Then I want to make a deal. We will return all the diverted money with interest and adjustments. 30 million reais will be donated anonymously to the hospital. 15 million for the construction of a new pediatric wing. And more importantly, he looked at Conceição, I want to offer a partnership in the company to your daughter. 50% of everything. Conceição nearly fainted. Mr. Bernardo, that's too much. I can't accept. But Osvaldo squeezed his daughter's shoulder. You can, and you will, my daughter. This isn't charity, it's justice. For the years of humiliation, the years of underpaid work, the years of dignity maintained even when it wasn't respected. The party was completely over. The waiters and staff, who had once served discreetly, now openly watched events unfold, many with tears in their eyes as they saw one of their own finally valued. Tiago, realizing he had lost everything, tried one last gambit. Conceição, please. You watched me grow up. Don't let them do this to me. I make mistakes, I know, but I can change. Conceição looked at him with profound sadness. Boy, Tiago, change isn't something you promise when you've lost everything. Change comes from within, from conscience, from true remorse. You're not sorry for what you did, you're sorry you got caught. The elevator glided smoothly up to the 20th floor of the corporate building in downtown Los Angeles, now renamed the Conceição Silva Tower. The name change had caused a stir in the business press, but Bernardo had insisted it was the least he could do. Conceição, now the Human Resources Director at the Prado Montero Group, adjusted the navy blazer Valentina had insisted on buying for her, still getting used to the new reality. 6 months had passed since that fateful 15th birthday party that had changed so many lives. Her office was spacious, with a panoramic view of the city, but she had made a point of decorating it simply and warmly. Photos of her 3 children held a place of honor on the desk, alongside a new frame of her and Osvaldo, father and daughter finally reunited after 3 decades. Osvaldo now lived with her in her new home in Beverly Hills, a comfortable but unpretentious residence where he spent afternoons teaching the grandkids to play chess and telling stories from his days as an investigator. The office door opened, and Marina came in, now the General Operations Supervisor, a role created especially for her. Conceição, someone wants to speak with you. Says it's urgent. Conceição looked up from the report on the new Educational Assistance Program for employees she was reviewing, an initiative that had already benefited 200 families in just 6 months. You can send them in, Marina. When the door opened again, Conceição almost didn't recognize the man who walked in. Tiago was unrecognizable. The hair, once perfectly trimmed at a 500 Reis salon, was now simple, cut at a neighborhood barbershop. The face that had always been artificially tanned now showed the pallor of someone who wakes at 4 in the morning to work. His hands, once soft as silk, bore the calluses of 6 months of hard labor. He wore a simple blue uniform with the logo of the cleaning company where he worked as an assistant, earning a minimum wage of 1,412 Reis a month. Mrs. Conceição, he said, and the respectful title sounded genuine for the first time. Thank you for seeing me. I know I don't deserve even 5 minutes of your time. Conceição motioned for him to sit, studying the young man she had watched grow up. How are you, Tiago? He lowered his head, hands intertwined in his lap. Working. Mrs. Benedita, my boss, says I'm the best cleaning assistant she's ever had. Ironic, isn't it? I, who never knew how to value those who cleaned, now know exactly how much effort every polished floor takes. The change was visible not only in his appearance but in his posture. Arrogance had been replaced by genuine humility, contempt by true respect. I live in a studio downtown, he continued, about 323 square feet. Rent is 800 Reis. I'm left with 612 Reais for food, transportation, everything else. I learned to cook rice and beans, to hand wash clothes, to save every cent. But you know what the biggest lesson was? Conceição waited for him to go on. I learned that dignity doesn't come from money. It comes from honest work. Today, when I get my paycheck, even though it's little, I feel a pride I never felt getting a 50,000 Reis allowance. He took an envelope from his pocket and set it on the desk. There's 300 Reais here. I know it's nothing compared to what I tried to do to you, but it's everything I managed to save in 6 months. I want to donate it to the Employee Assistance Fund. Conceição picked up the envelope, moved not by the amount, but by the gesture. Tiago, that's more than 20% of your salary. He nodded. I know. But I also know how much difference it can make to someone in need. Last month, I spent 3 days eating only bread with margarine because my pay was late. A co-worker, Mr. João, shared his lunchbox with me without my asking. I'll never forget that gesture. The door opened again, and Valentina ran in, now 15 and a half, wearing the uniform of the public school she had asked to transfer to, leaving the elite academy behind. Auntie Conceição, I'm sorry I'm late. The bus was packed and she stopped when she saw her brother. Tiago? The two hadn't seen each other since that disastrous night. Valentina had chosen to cut ties with her brother, still hurt by the humiliation he had caused at her party. "Hey Val," he said softly, "you look beautiful. You've grown up." Valentina approached cautiously. "You're different." Tiago smiled, a sad but genuine smile. "I am. Or rather, I'm finally who I should have been all along. I'm sorry about your party, Val. I ruined the most important day of your life out of greed and cruelty." Valentina studied him for a long moment, then did something unexpected. She hugged him. "I forgive you, T. You're my brother, despite everything." Conceição watched the siblings reunite with tears in her eyes. Osvaldo always said forgiveness was the most powerful form of justice, and there was the proof. The door opened once more, and Bernardo walked in, stopping in surprise when he saw his son. Father and son faced each other for the first time in 6 months. Bernardo had visibly aged, whiter hair, deeper lines in his face, the weight of the revelations and the moral rebuilding of his company taking their toll. "Tiago," he said simply. "Dad," Tiago replied, "I came to return this to Mrs. Conceição." He showed the envelope with the 300 reais. "It's little, but it's honest, something our money never was." Bernardo nodded slowly. "Returning the diverted money cost us nearly our entire fortune. We sold 3 of the 4 mansions, the fleet of luxury cars, the jets. But for the first time in 20 years, I sleep without nightmares." Helena appeared in the doorway, now volunteering at the hospital they had harmed, trying in some way to make up for years of silent complicity. "It's time for dinner," she said gently, then saw Tiago. "Son?" The word came out as a question, as if she wasn't sure she still had the right to call him that. "Hi, Mom. I was just leaving. I only came to drop something off." Helena looked at Conceição, who gave a subtle nod. "Tiago, why don't you have dinner with us today? Conceição always cooks for 10 people, even though there are just the 4 of us." And so, that evening, an unlikely family gathered around a simple table in Conceição's apartment. Osvaldo presided over the table like the patriarch he had become, telling stories that made everyone laugh. Valentina helped serve, having completely left behind the life of a pampered princess. Bernardo and Helena, stripped of their armor of wealth and power, seemed more human than ever. And Tiago, the young man who 6 months earlier had tried to destroy an innocent woman for sport, now washed the dishes voluntarily, knowing exactly how much effort every household task required. When Tiago said goodbye that night to return to his studio, Conceição walked him to the door. "Mrs. Conceição," he said, "do you think one day you'll be able to forgive me completely?" She touched his face gently, the same way she used to when he was a child. "Boy, Tiago, forgiveness isn't something you give all at once. It's something you build day by day, gesture by gesture. You're on the right path. Keep going." As Tiago took the stairs down the building, unable to spare quarters for the old pay-per-use elevator, Conceição stood at the window watching him walk to the bus stop. Osvaldo came up beside her, placing a hand on his daughter's shoulder. "You did more than forgive my daughter. You turned a curse into a blessing." Conceição smiled, remembering that terrible night 6 months earlier. "It wasn't me, Dad. It was the truth. Truth has the power to destroy and to rebuild. That night, it did both." And so, in a twist no one could have foreseen, the stolen watch that was never stolen ended up revealing the greatest theft of all, the theft of humanity by greed. But it also proved that even the most corrupted hearts can find redemption, and that sometimes you have to lose everything to discover what truly has value. Tiago had lost 180,000 reais on a fake watch, but gained something all the money in the world couldn't buy: the clean conscience of a man who learned the value of honest work. And Conceição, the woman who was nearly destroyed by a lie, became the matriarch of a family that finally learned love and respect are worth more than all the gold watches in the world.